The rain hammered against the windows of our Seattle home, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. For weeks, Alistair, a 44-year-old software engineer, had been plagued by annoying unease. My wife, Bronte, once so vibrant and affectionate, had become distant, her smiles strained, her touches fleeting. We'd been together for 15 years, married for 12, and I thought I knew her better than anyone. Now I felt like I was living with a stranger. It started subtly. Bronte, a talented architect, began working late more frequently, citing demanding deadlines and difficult clients. I understood. Her career was important to her, and I always supported her ambitions. But the late nights stretched into weekends, and the excuses became increasingly vague. She stopped sharing details about her projects, her conversations growing clipped and impersonal. When I asked about her day, she'd simply say, "busy," and change the subject. Then there were the phone calls. Whispered conversations held in hushed tones, always when I wasn't around. She'd dart into another room or step outside, her voice dropping to a near-inaudible murmur. When I innocently inquired who she was talking to, she'd brush it off as a colleague or a client, her eyes darting away from mine. I tried to dismiss my suspicions, attributing her behavior to stress and overwork. I told myself I was being paranoid, that my imagination was running wild. But the feeling persisted, a cold knot of dread tightening in my stomach. The final straw came one Saturday morning. Bronte claimed she had to attend an urgent meeting at her office. I offered to drive her, but she vehemently refused, insisting she needed to go alone. Her reaction was so intense, so disproportionate to the situation, that it solidified my worst fears. After she left, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I paced the house, my anxiety growing with each passing minute. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to follow her. I waited an hour after she departed, giving her a head start, then got into my car and set off in the direction of her office. But instead of heading downtown, she turned onto a side street, then onto a highway leading out of the city. My heart pounded in my chest as I followed her, my mind racing with possibilities, each one more horrifying than the last. She drove for about an hour, finally pulling into a secluded parking lot near a small, nondescript motel on the outskirts of town. I parked a distance away, my hands trembling as I watched her get out of the car. She walked towards the motel, her steps hurried, her eyes scanning the surroundings as if she were afraid of being seen. A few minutes later, a man emerged from one of the rooms. It was Theron, one of Bronte's colleagues. I'd met him a few times at office parties. He was younger than me, handsome in a slick, superficial way, with a confident swagger that always rubbed me the wrong way. They embraced, a long, passionate kiss that confirmed my worst fears. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me, my vision blurring, my legs threatening to give way. I watched in stunned silence as they walked into the motel room together, the door closing behind them, sealing my fate. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Everything I thought I knew, everything I believed in, shattered into a million pieces. My wife, the woman I loved, the woman I had built my life with, was cheating on me. The pain was unbearable, a searing agony that ripped through my soul. I sat in my car for what felt like an eternity, numb with shock and disbelief. I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The rain continued to fall, blurring my vision, washing away the last vestiges of my hope. Finally, I managed to start the car and drive home, my mind a blank canvas of despair. I walked into the house, the silence amplifying the emptiness inside me. I wandered through the rooms, touching our belongings, each object a painful reminder of what we had lost. When Bronte returned home later that evening, she found me sitting in the living room, staring blankly at the wall. She tried to act normal, asking about my day, but I cut her off. "I know," I said, my voice flat and emotionless. Her face paled. "Know what?" she stammered. "I know about Theron," I said, my gaze unwavering. "I followed you to the motel." She burst into tears, her carefully constructed facade crumbling before my eyes. She begged for forgiveness, claiming it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. She said she still loved me, that she didn't want to lose me, but her words were hollow, empty promises that rang false in the face of her betrayal. The trust was gone, irrevocably broken. I couldn't forgive her, couldn't forget what she had done. "It's over, Bronte," I said, my voice firm. "I want a divorce." She pleaded, she cried, she tried everything to change my mind, but I was resolute. The pain was too deep, the wound too raw. I couldn't stay with her, not after what she had done. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, paperwork, and bitter arguments. Bronte tried to negotiate to salvage what she could, but I refused to compromise. I wanted out completely and irrevocably. The divorce was finalized a few months later. I moved out of our house, leaving behind the life we had built together. I found a small apartment downtown, a clean slate where I could start over. The pain didn't disappear overnight. It lingered, a dull ache in my heart, a constant reminder of my loss. But I refused to let it consume me. I threw myself into my work, spending long hours at the office, immersing myself in code and algorithms. I also started seeing a therapist who helped me process my emotions and develop coping mechanisms. It was a long and difficult journey, but gradually I began to heal. One evening, about a year after the divorce, I received a phone call from an unknown number. I hesitated before answering, a sense of foreboding washing over me. "Hello," I said. "Alistair, it's Theron," the voice on the other end said. My blood ran cold. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice tight with anger. "I need your help," he said, his voice trembling. "My help? After what you did?" I scoffed. "You've got a lot of nerve." "Bronte left me," he said, his voice cracking. "She took everything, my money, my car, my apartment. I'm ruined." I felt a flicker of satisfaction, a small measure of justice for the pain they had both inflicted on me, but I quickly suppressed it. I wasn't a vengeful person. I didn't want to see anyone suffer, even those who had wronged me. "I can't help you, Theron," I said. "You made your choices. Now you have to live with the consequences." I hung up the phone, a sense of closure washing over me. I didn't feel happy, but I didn't feel angry either. I simply felt indifferent. I never heard from Bronte or Theron again. I moved on with my life, focusing on my work, my friends, and my own well-being. I started dating again, cautiously at first, but eventually I met someone new, someone who appreciated me for who I was, someone who loved me unconditionally. Her name was Genevieve, and she was everything Bronte wasn't: honest, loyal, and kind. She was a breath of fresh air, a ray of sunshine after a long, dark storm. We got married a few years later, in a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by our closest friends and family. It was the happiest day of my life. I finally found the love and happiness I had always longed for. Looking back on my experience with Bronte, I realized that betrayal can be a painful but ultimately transformative experience. It can shatter your world, but it can also force you to rebuild, to become stronger and more resilient. It can teach you valuable lessons about trust, forgiveness, and the importance of choosing the right people to share your life with. I learned that love is not enough. It takes honesty, loyalty, and mutual respect to build a lasting relationship. And I learned that sometimes the best revenge is to move on and create a better life for yourself. Years later, I was at a conference in San Francisco when I saw her. Bronte. She looked older, tired. I almost didn't recognize her. She was alone, sitting at a table in the hotel lobby, nursing a drink. I hesitated, then decided to approach her. "Bronte?" I asked. She looked up, her eyes widening in surprise. "Alistair," she said, her voice barely a whisper. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the past hanging between us. "How are you?" I asked, breaking the silence. "I'm okay," she said, her voice flat. "Things didn't work out with Theron." I nodded but didn't say anything. "I made a mistake, Alistair," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "The biggest mistake of my life." I looked at her, my heart softening slightly. I couldn't forgive her completely, but I could understand her regret. "I know," I said. "But it's okay, Bronte. We all make mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them and move on." I stood up to leave. "Alistair," she said, her voice pleading. "Are you happy?" I smiled. "Yes, Bronte," I said, "I am. I hope you find your happiness too." And with that I walked away, leaving her behind, finally free from the pain of the past. My story is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It's a reminder that even in the face of betrayal, heartbreak, and loss, it is possible to heal, to grow, and to find happiness again. It's a story of survival, of hope, and of the enduring power of love. To anyone who has ever been betrayed, know that you are not alone. Your pain is real, but it is not permanent. You have the strength to overcome this, to rebuild your life, and to find the happiness you deserve. Don't give up on yourself, and don't give up on love. The best is yet to come. Years later, I found out from a mutual acquaintance that Bronte was working as a junior architect in a small firm in Sacramento, still single. Theron, I heard, was selling timeshares in Florida. I felt no satisfaction, no vindication. Just a faint echo of sadness for what could have been, and a profound gratitude for the life I had now. Genevieve and I built a wonderful life together. We traveled the world, pursued our passions, and supported each other through thick and thin. We had two beautiful children, and our home was filled with love and laughter. I had finally found my happily ever after, a testament to the fact that even after the darkest of storms, the sun will eventually shine again. And that, my friend, is my story. A story of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimately redemption. A story that I hope will inspire you to never give up on yourself and to always believe in the possibility of a brighter future.